My stance on God's existence. I noticed that this dude is wearing a shirt that says virgin on it. Who the f does that, dude? I don't know. Maybe I just come from a different time, different era, but like when I was growing up, being a virgin was like, that's synonymous with like, you're a fucking loser, especially above a certain age. So like for me to see a dude wearing a shirt that just says virgin on it makes me want to laugh, but I should be more open-minded. I'm sorry.
I believe in God. Now
Okay.
that statement itself is considered controversial in the year 2021.
No, not really. I guess this is a few years old. Yeah, that's not really considered a controversial statement, considering that the majority of Americans still do believe in God. You know, I think something like 70% of Americans believe in God. So if this is from 2022, I'm actually underestimating it. So the number of belief in God in U.S. dips to 81%. This is as of 2022. So this guy is in a country where 4 out of 5 people believe in God, and he's going to say that that's some kind of controversial statement to say he believes in God. It's not a controversial statement whatsoever. You're literally in the vast majority. So please stop with the victim complex nonsense, because it's tiring.
For some reason, me telling you that I believe that there's a higher power above all human beings that have created us and fashioned us so perfectly. And
well, I don't know how perfect it was. I mean, look at us, bro. I mean, you're a broccoli top in a virgin hoodie. I'm a weirdo in face paint. So like, how he didn't do as good a job as you might think, you know what I mean? Hey, if you like this clip, you might like the full stream, which I do every Sunday, more or less, over on the Pessimist Productions Patreon, link down below. Thank you kindly.
genuinely believe that exists is somehow going to get somebody on the other side of this screen, maybe even across the world, really triggered, upset, and so mad to the point where they might unsubscribe, and that's okay.
I mean, I'm not subscribed, so I can't really unsubscribe. I'm not upset. I'm not upset that you believe in God. If I was upset at people who believed in God on a one-to-one basis, then I would be upset all day, every day. Every time I went outside my door, I'd be furious about 80% of the people I see. Like, fucking bastard, fucking God, believing son of a bitch. I'm not like that. I am upset that, you know, 4/5 of the population of my country are so stupid that they believe in God. But I'm not upset with them on a one-to-one basis, because that would be way too much. That'd be way too emotionally stimulating. So I'm upset about it in a general sense. But when someone tells me they believe in God, I almost just kind of assume that that's the default in this country, because it kind of is. Anyway, I'm hearing from the chat that less than half of Gen Z believes in God. So good. Seeing some improvement on this front.
The reason that I made this channel was so that I can keep it real with you. I can tell you exactly what I feel,
Cool.
so that you can watch it. If I was going to put on a show for everyone,
Well, if you want to keep it real, then you might want to stick to reality and not believe in God, because God isn't real. But you know, that's neither here nor there. I mean, it is actually, but whatever.
I would not be doing YouTube right now. I'm going to tell you exactly what I believe about
All right,
God.
I'm ready.
Now, I've been on a mental roller coaster for these last 3 or 4 years, trying to figure out why I was put here on Earth, why all human beings even exist. I look at myself in my
You weren't put here for any great purpose. You're a product of evolution. And so if you have any sort of purpose evolutionarily, it is to spread your seed. And it looks, based on like your hoodie, that you're not doing that. So you're failing in that purpose. But yeah, you're supposed to reproduce. That's what evolution wants you to do. Now, you don't have to do that. I haven't done that. I don't have any plans to do that, because I don't feel beholden to the forces of natural selection. But that's what you're here for. Like, if you want to know from a purely scientific standpoint why you're here to survive long enough to pass on your genes to another generation so that they can do the same. And that's it. That's not a very fulfilling purpose. So that being said, you're better off kind of finding your own purpose in life and you exist in a nihilistic universe. You exist in a universe where there is no inherent sort of meaning. And because there is no inherent meaning, that means you can assign whatever meaning to things you want. You can live by your own standards. And so find whatever purpose you want to find, but know that it's not being validated by some sort of cosmic entity. There's not going to be a reward at the end. There's not going to be a punishment if you fail. There's just going to be the cold, infinite nothingness of death. It's not even cold, actually. There's nothing to it.
Temporary body, and I think, what's the point? Why am I here? What's the
Because your parents fucked.
answer? And over years of thinking,
Mm-hmm.
I went through routes of atheism. I went through routes of believing that I'm stardust trying to explore itself, which still does kind of make sense in a sense, but then the Big Bang Theory, and then looking into different religions, and I never really understood what the point of it was. I never understood where we came from. What's the source? What's the absolute beginning? Because
And then I came to the conclusion that 80% of people have already come to. God. It must be kind of a boring sort of journey, right? I went through all this thinking, and I thought about all this stuff, and then I came to the conclusion that the majority of people, the vast majority of people, are totally right, and there's a God, and it's all about him. Like, okay, good. I'm glad that you took the long way to the short bus.
I pull out a book and I show you this book was written by author A, and then you can tell that this book was written by a human being, right? Because there was a form of intelligence that was written down on this piece of paper, and you can tell that another human being wrote this.
Sure.
And
well, I mean, with AI, maybe it's a little bit more shaky, but sure, yeah.
And then if I give you a sample of DNA, and you see all of the amazing, wondrous things that happen inside of our own bodies that we can't even fully comprehend, that it takes years and years of schooling to kind of even get a grasp at. We look at all of the mechanisms in our body that help fight diseases, that help fight cancer, and we think that there was no intelligence that made us.
How many times are we going to do this argument, man? All right. So the reason that we know that that book was written is because we know that books are written. We already have that knowledge going in. When we see a book, we don't know that it was written by a human being because it's so complicated. We know it was written by a human being because we know that's who fucking writes books. Okay? So you can't just be like, this book is complicated and it was written by a human being. Our DNA is complicated, therefore someone must have wrote it. No, that doesn't track or follow in any way, shape, or form. That's not even remotely logically inferable from that. This is just a irreducible complexity argument. Oh my God, everything's so complicated, must be designed. And there's no reason to believe that. There's no reason to believe that something complicated can't arise through completely naturalistic means. In fact, there's every indication that that's exactly what happened.
We can play a video game on our computer and say, yeah, a team wrote the code for the game, and I'm just playing the game. Yeah, like a human being wrote that. But we look at our body.
Yeah, once again, we know who makes video games. It's us. Like, we come in with that knowledge. We already possess the knowledge of we make video games. So we're not inferring these things based on the complexity of the video game. We already know that we're the ones who make it.
We don't say who wrote the code for us. There's so much going on inside of our own body.
Sure.
Looking into a mirror, you can find the answer right there. You don't even have to go look anywhere else. Looking at yourself in the mirror, that's all the answer that you need. That's all the proof that you need. And I realized that I was looking for all of these answers, all these things extra.
Yeah, that's right. All I had to do was look in the mirror. Well, you know what you see when you look in the mirror? You see yourself. So are you saying you're God? Is that what this really boils down to? Because that usually is what, at the end of the day, most Christians believe. Most Christians, at the end of the day, believe that they're God. Now, I don't know if this guy's a Christian. He hasn't said anything about Christ as of yet. I get strong Christian vibes. But really, most of these Christians, I mean, think about it. They all claim to have a personal relationship with God, and everyone's version of God always seems to have the exact same morality and the exact same beliefs that they do. You never do meet a Christian and ask them, like, what do you disagree with God on? They don't disagree with God on anything because whatever God they worship is already the God that lives in their brain. It's the I God.
Journal in this world, when I just had to look in the mirror and I found the exact masterpiece that God created.
Thinking a little high of yourself there, I guess. I don't know. I don't really know if I consider you a masterpiece. I'll be honest with you. You know, you're not like a hideous dude or anything. I'm not looking at you like, ugh, what a fucking scummy piece of fucking shit. But like, I don't know if I'd say, I don't know if masterpiece is the word I'd use. I'm just saying, you know.
And we all could as well. And that's what made the most sense to me. When somebody says,
so basically, you found God in the mirror. Awesome. Love it. The conceit of religious folks.
can God create a rock so heavy that he himself cannot lift? I love the question because it really stumped me for a long time.
Oh my God. I watched a video yesterday where someone attempted to answer this question and they didn't answer it at all. I'm looking forward to hearing this guy's answer because I love this question and I love seeing the attempts at answering it. This is going to be great. You know what? I'm going into this with the wrong attitude because I'm going into this with the attitude that this guy is going to say something really stupid that I'm just going to be able to pick apart easily, but maybe I'm going to be fucking shocked at how intelligent what he's about to say is. I am ready. Let's go, sir.
Can God create a rock so heavy that he himself can't lift because it's so heavy?
Right.
The question itself is flawed.
All right. Okay. You got to sidestep it. I can't do it. Well, the question itself is flawed. All right. Tell me how the question's flawed. Tell me how.
Because you're asking the question as if God's a human being, as if God's immortal, as if God has
no
a weight limit. The question itself isn't applied to a God. If God couldn't lift anything, then he wouldn't be God, right? But if God can't create anything, then he wouldn't be God. So the question itself does not make sense if we're...
Well, thank you for that total gibberish. Like, yeah, all right. No, the question makes complete sense. Can God create a stone or anything? So, I mean, like, you could say, I mean, like, this has been rephrased, like The Simpsons rephrased it as, can God, you know, make a burrito so hot that he can't eat it, you know? The question is, doesn't the concept of all-powerful contradict itself? Because he can't defy his own limitations. So if he has no limitations, then he cannot create something that he cannot do. Like, he can't create a puzzle so difficult that he can't solve it, which means there's something he can't do. So it conceptually eats itself. That's the point, is that no matter, like, you cannot be all powerful. All powerful as an attribute literally does not make sense, because either he can't make the rock or he can't lift the rock. Either way, there is something that God can't do, so he can't do everything, so he's not all powerful. I've yet to hear someone cogently solve it.
We're speaking about the source, the creator. You're asking this question as if God...
I mean, the easy thing to do, honestly, if I was a Christian and I was being faced with this question, I would just say, well, look, God is not truly all powerful. He does have some limitations, but they can't do that. Even though that would solve the problem, even you could just, I mean, when some smart-ass atheist comes to you, he's like, could God create a boulder so heavy that he can't lift it? Just say yes or no. And then the argument literally can't advance from there. But in doing that, you'd have to give up the concept of all-powerful being. And I guess they don't want to do that, even though it's logically incongruent.
God is bound by sleep and time and is mortal and has to work out at the gym to lift the heavier rock. You're asking this question. You're asking an infinite being, if you will, a finite question, which makes zero sense.
I mean, it makes sense to me. I don't, and you know what really doesn't make sense is your attempt at a refutation. I don't know what you're saying. You're saying that God, I mean, you're basically just saying it doesn't make sense because God can lift any amount. God can lift any amount, so of course. All right, so your answer then is that he can't make a fucking rock so heavy he can't lift it because he can lift any amount. Therefore, he still can't do that. He can't make a rock so heavy that he can fucking not lift it. So that's something God can't do. So he's not all-powerful. Dumb fuck.
And then I asked the question to myself over and over again, yeah, but where is God? Like, what? I'm a human being. What is my relationship to the source, to the creator? How does that make any sense?
Well, just look in the mirror. Look in the mirror and you'll see the source of God. It's you. Not you necessarily specifically, but it's you as a human being. Human beings made up God. We made him up. We conceived of him. And we gave him his attributes. And they don't make sense.
And I thought, maybe God's here. Well, no, God can't just be only here, because if you can point at God, then he's probably not God, right? Like if
Why?
God's a certain piece of mass, or God's like right here, then why isn't God over there? So then he's limited. So that's not true.
So God, this is one of these God is everywhere things. I mean, this is not sophisticated theological shit that should require a lot of thought, because like when I was growing up, we were told this shit all the time. I know a lot of you guys in this chat were raised Christian. Weren't you always told God is everywhere? God is in everything? I was always told that. So this is not some, oh, wow, big brain deduction. This is once again just something that Christians are, raised to think.
But then if God is everything, which I thought for a long time, multiple years.
Okay, so I guess he's not doing that. Cool, let's see what he does.
That still means that I can point at God, which is already an understatement to what it is.
I don't understand why you being able to point at God makes him not God. Like, okay, so look, if God is just like a dude, I can point at him. And if you could point at him, he's not God. But if he's everything, I can still point at him. So he can't be God that way either. Because if you could point at something, it's not God. I don't get that. I'm sorry. I'm a little lost, sir. Help me out.
Because if I can point at God and I'm this 3D temporary living object, then that can't be right, because that's an understatement to something that is totally infinite. So these questions that I was asking this entire time, they were all flawed questions.
Hey, dude, let me help you out here. This whole like thinking thing, it ain't for you. I mean, look, some people should think more. You are someone who should probably think less. You just need to be a go with the flow kind of guy, because you're not good at this. It's not working out. You and thinking, I think there needs to be like a restraining order situation. You and thinking need to stay like 100 yards apart at all times. Okay? Good. I'm glad we've come to this arrangement with each other.
Questions. God isn't comprehensible by our temporary mind. He's not conceivable. You can't point at him. You can't look at him.
Okay.
He's not a certain piece of mass.
Okay.
That's not how it works.
Okay.
And after years,
how does it work?
And years of
Tell me
thinking
how it
about
works.
this question, of
Okay.
spinning around in my own mind,
Wow, yeah.
I eventually came to the conclusion that
I'm so fucking ready for this conclusion. I know this is going to be fucking hilarious. All right, let's do this.
there is a God.
Okay.
There's no way that we're living in this temporary body.
Oh, we're not. So we're not going to address the little paradox you came up with of I can point at a mass and I can also point at everything. So that can't be what God is. You're not going to tell me what God actually is, though? Okay. All right, man.
Body this entire time for no reason. There's no way that the sun is the exact distance from the earth.
I'm not going to jump down his throat for comprehensible. All right. Yeah, it's supposed to be comprehensible, but whatever. You know what he means. Like if he was saying intelligent stuff and then he threw out a comprehensible instead of a comprehensible, no one would be jumping down his fucking throat for it. So let's not fucking make it about that.
And it hasn't burned up the earth yet, and it hasn't froze it off because it's too far away. Like there's no way that all of these things, everywhere from the ant kingdom to the human kingdom, that everything is working in perfect balance and order.
It's not
And then
really,
people
though. I
ask the
mean,
question-
a lot of things are and constantly having to readjust themselves. Like, balance is something that sometimes is found by huge acts of destruction. I mean, there have been multiple mass extinction events in the course of this planet's history because things got out of balance in some way. So, yeah, balance is something that is constantly deviated from and then restored by the forces of nature. Things do not just work like a perfect clockwork, you know, constantly in tandem and constantly in perfect balance. Sometimes balance goes way out of whack and has to be restored.
Question. So if God's good, then why is there evil in this world? Why is there bad stuff?
Man, every one of these is the same. Doesn't matter. From the most highfalutin, you know, intellectual apologist to the lowest tier, look, man, I've been thinking about some things, bro. Like, it's always the same exact arguments over and 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 over again.
Like death and bad people. Well, you have to understand, God created evil, because if there was no evil,
I mean, a lot of okay,
then there would be no good.
Why?
Law of polarity states that there has to be an opposite for everything.
But if there's a God, he wrote the laws of nature, so any sort of law of polarity that might be in existence, he would have written. So it doesn't really, doesn't really track, does it?
Especially for us to understand and comprehend it. If there was no nighttime, there would be no daytime.
That's always, you ever notice that's always their excuse for when I mean, dude, if there was perpetual night, yeah, we wouldn't call it night, but it would still be what it is. If there was perpetual day, we wouldn't call it day, but it would still be what it is. And if everything was just good, we might not have a concept of evil, but they could still be goodness, right? Like if everyone just treated each other well and everyone was, no one was raping and murdering and cheating and lying and all that stuff, like, we wouldn't somehow not be able to comprehend reality. It wouldn't be like, oh, there can be no good without evil. That'd be fine. If there was just good, but we didn't have a word for it because we had no conception of its opposite, it would still be the same thing. It would still be the same set of behaviors. It would still be people treating each other well. It just we wouldn't fucking understand the deviation. We wouldn't have a basis of comparison, so we might not have a specific word for it linguistically because it would be unnecessary, because it would just be the state of things, but it would still be what it is. So this idea of you can't have good without evil, yeah, maybe you can't have it as a concept, but you could still have it as a reality.
If there was no white, there would be no black. If there was no blue, there would be no red. There has to be an equal opposite to everything on this planet for us to comprehend one and the other. If there was no tall, there would be no short.
I mean, what? If everyone was 6'7", yeah, no one would think about that being like tall. If everyone was 5'2", no one would think of that as being short. But there would still be a 5'2", and there would still be a 6'7". This is insipid. Yeah, also blue and red are not opposites, so whatever.
So if everything was good,
this dude, I mean, that's just like politics brain right there. I mean, maybe they're on opposite ends of the color wheel, I guess. Like, whatever.
There would be no good. Good wouldn't exist, because what can you compare it to? That's how we experience. That's how we're tested as human beings, whether you believe that this life is a test or not. It's because we have the option of the same spectrum to choose up, down, left, or right.
Well, wait, is there polar opposites, or is there a spectrum? Because that's two totally different things.
And if we didn't have the choice, what's the point?
No, red and green are opposed on the color wheel. Okay. So it doesn't even work on that sense then.
It makes no sense if it was any other way. That's the kind of thinking that I've came to over the last 4 years of...
Well, the last 4 years have been wasted then, my man. I'm sorry to tell you. Like I said, thinking ain't for you.
Definitely going back and forth with myself in my own head about God's existence. Me posting this video itself is going to rile some people up, and this does not give anybody the okay to go fight about religious debates in the comments. That's not why we're here.
Okay.
I'm just explaining...
No one argue with me in the comments, guys.
Well, right. I believe that there is a source to everything.
Well, you did a
There
terrible
is a
job.
merch drop right now that you probably
No. No. Don't care. Don't want.
Be a man.